समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
It's the oldest wisdom in any crisis situation that before things get better, they will get worse. Our neighbor, eastern neighbor Bangladesh, unfortunately is going through that situation where things are getting worse. Hopefully they will get better soon. Sooner the better for everybody, but right now they aren't getting better. So we see what's happened last night there. What's happened last night is that a big procession or protest came in front of 32 Dhanmondi. That is the old residence of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. That is the house where he used to live. Earlier on, it used to be a two-bedroom house. He lived there. From there, he started his politics in 1948. He set up a new party. That then grew into the strong Bengali party. I will tell you more about that as we go along, how his politics evolved. However, that house has become a symbol of Bangladeshi freedom struggle, of the creation of Bangladesh or the liberation of Bangladesh. And thereby, it's been given the status of a holy site, in terms of the evolution of Bangladeshi nationalism. However, Bangladesh is contesting views of its nationalism, also contesting views on who liberated Bangladesh, or was it one person or one set of leaders who liberated Bangladesh, or there were many. So as happens in every country, there is a contested history of Bangladesh's liberation. And that is what is now feeding into these protests. So these protests came in. This was called a bulldozer march or a bulldozer procession. This was called by an organization called Students Against Discrimination. Now, this is an organization that came into being when these protests against Sheikh Hasina started. And this organization was in the forefront. Many members of this organization are now in the interim government. As we know, they are not called ministers, they are called advisors. So each one who's called advisor is like a cabinet minister for that area. Even the prime minister, somebody who holds the position equivalent to a prime minister, is also called chief advisor. That is Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus. So these students, these protesters came by 8 p.m. with axes, shovels, hammers. They first took down the mural of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and then by 9:30 p.m. they had demolished a lot of the house, finally all of the house, and they were tossing around the debris, and they set it on fire as well. So they had come prepared. They set it up on fire. They were playing with debris, and what were the slogans they were shouting? They were saying, "Hang, hang, Sheikh Hasina must be hanged." Let me try and do it in Bangla, although my pronunciation will be all over the place. So apologies, my Bengali friends. So, fashi, fashi, fashi chai, Sheikh Hasina fashi chai, which means hanging, hanging, hanging. We demand hanging for Sheikh Hasina. Or Delhi na Dhaka, 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 Delhi or Dhaka? Obviously Dhaka. So this is it. This is the anti-Indian sentiment, and they are playing on that. Or something like Sara Banglaye Khabar De, spread the news all over Bangladesh, Mujibadir Kabar De. So Mujib's ideology should be buried in a grave. So slogans like that. Now, how did it start? Why did it start? What was the spark for it? Because Bangladesh has been quiet for some time. Now this went on. The reason it happened was that Sheikh Hasina decided to give a speech to people of Bangladesh. And this was to be broadcast on Facebook at 9 p.m. So this is what roused these crowds. And most of them were led by students who had protested when she was in power, and who had led the movement to get her out of power and to be exiled into India. Even before the speech was delivered, it was initially supposed to be delivered on the Chhatra League, Bangladesh Chhatra League Facebook page. That could not happen because Bangladesh Chhatra League, which is the students' wing of Awami League, that has been banned. So speech was finally telecast or broadcast on Awami League page. Now look at the statements issued by the student leaders. Many of them, I will read some to you. So see the statement from Hasnat Abdullah, who's the convener of Students Against Discrimination. And this is on Facebook. And you will see it on your screens. It says, tonight Bangladesh, I'm obviously giving you the English translation. Tonight Bangladesh will be free from the pilgrimage site of fascism. So just as Mujib's party and Awami League followers see that as a place of pilgrimage for one who they see as the liberator of Bangladesh, he's calling it the pilgrimage site of Bangladeshi fascism. Then the student leaders also issued instructions, orders, threats, you can call them what you want, to all the publications in Bangladesh not to cover Sheikh Hasina's speech. Now, my colleague Devdatta Chakraborty, whose writings you see often, she's checked out the websites of all major Bangladeshi publications, and it looks like all of them have not covered Sheikh Hasina's speech, because the student leader said, anybody who does this will be seen to be promoting the idea of the return of fascism, and will be responsible for its consequences. You know what that means in countries like ours, particularly wherever there is mob rule. We have seen this in many parts of India, fortunately long in the past, not lately. So this is probably the reason this did not find any coverage in Bangladeshi media. Now, after ransacking 32 Dhanmondi and burning it and pulling it down, they also went and burned Sudha Sadan, which is the residence of the family residence of Sheikh Hasina's late husband, that is M.A. Wazid Mia. That was done, and then they took the bulldozer to Sheikh Mujib's mural in front of the Deputy Commissioner's office. So that was done as well. So what are they doing? They are destroying all the symbols of Sheikh Mujib, Awami League, etc., because they want to finish the Awami League, the legacy and the history. Now, I will tell you a little bit about Dhanmondi. Dhanmondi 32 is a house where Sheikh Mujib moved in 1961. It was then a two-room house. It is from there that in 1966, he launched his six-point movement. It is the same house from where on 15th of August to 1965, he had asked for autonomy or freedom for the eastern wing of Pakistan. Because Pakistan had this peculiar situation where while the power was with the army, because Ayub Khan was the dictator, the power resided in the army, which was in Western Pakistan. So the political power was all in Western Pakistan. But the larger population lived on the eastern side, in East Pakistan, what later became Bangladesh. Also, West Pakistan had many provinces. There was Punjab, there was Northwest Frontier Province then, which is now Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Baluchistan, Sindh. Bangladesh had a single province. So Ayub Khan was very worried about this, that at this rate, one province will dominate all of Pakistan. So at one point, because he was field marshal, he was the dictator, he could do what he wanted, he had declared all of Pakistan to be one unit. Now that wasn't going to work, and that is what led to many fissiparous tendencies and protests, etc. That wasn't going to work. Post Ayub, when elections were held in 1970. 1970, in the elections, demographics had their way, because in an election, numbers matter. So the army may have wanted their own people to win from West Pakistan. The army definitely wanted West Pakistan to be in charge of Pakistan, because as Sheikh Hasina says in her latest speech, and she's quite right in saying that until Bangladesh became a nation, East Pakistan was actually like a colony of West Pakistan. That is the reason the separatist movement started there, because Bengali soldiers could not rise to a rank higher than colonel, she mentions quite rightly. In fact, Ziaur Rahman was a major, and that's why many of the people who also revolted against Sheikh Mujibur Rahman later were majors or lieutenant colonels, because there were not that many senior Bengali officers. In fact, even the officer who was appointed head of the Mukti Bahini while the freedom movement was on, Ghulam Usmani, he was also a colonel. So she's right about that. So in West Pakistan, particularly with West Pakistani elites and the army, the idea that there will be some situation whereby the Bengalis will rule over all of Pakistan, that was unacceptable, anathema. But numbers and elections. Once you hold an election, numbers will hold sway. So numbers decided that Awami League not only swept East Pakistan, what was then East Pakistan, but got sufficient numbers to have a majority in National Parliament. In National Parliament, there were 138 seats on the western side and 167 seats on the eastern side. Some seats on either side were reserved for women. On the eastern side of the 162 general seats, 162 of 167 were general seats. Of the 162 general seats, Awami League won how many? 160 seats. And of the seven women's seats, it won all of the 7. So it became 167. 167 it got from the eastern wing. It did not win any on the western wing. But out of the 137 on the western wing, Pakistan People's Party, which is Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's party, it got 81 seats plus 5 seats for women, so it became 86. Then Council Muslim League got 7, Jamiat got 7, ANP, Khan Wali Khan's party, that got 7 seats. So basically, in any case, since West Pakistan had 138 seats, East Pakistan had 167 seats, if somebody swept East Pakistan, that party already had a majority in National Parliament. Would Yahya Khan now, as the dictator of Pakistan, hand over power to a Bengali? He was going to do no such thing. And because he denied power to Awami League and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and continued running the government, effectively abrogating that election or cancelling that election. That's how this revolt picked up in Bangladesh. So 5th of March 1971, it's from the same house, 32 Dhanmondi, that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman made his famous speech, where he said, at this rate, Eastern Wing should be independent, should be Bangladesh, and that is when he was arrested and taken away, whisked away to West Pakistan. That is the importance of 32 Dhanmondi. Now, then what happens? 25th of March, Pakistani army starts its big crackdown in Bangladesh, massive, brutal crackdown. Literally, lakhs are killed, raped, etc. Minorities, which is Hindus, are particularly targeted, and millions of refugees start coming into India. At one point, the number reached 1 crore. So you can imagine in 1971, when our populations were not even 1/3 of what they are now, how many refugees was that, and how much of a burden that was on a still very poor country like India. That is what finally led to the war and the liberation of Bangladesh. Now that is where the history issue comes in. And that's why the students are attacking all these symbols of history of Bangladesh's liberation linked to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Because Sheikh Mujib and Awami League were not the only ones fighting. As I said earlier, there are many versions and many contested ideas or notions on Bangladesh's liberation. There was also a bunch of young officers. First of all, Mukti Bahini was fighting. The Mukti Bahini had a lot of the earlier soldiers and officers who had been serving in Pakistan Army and who had now come on the liberators' side, and they were fighting this underground war under the command of the Indian Army or in conjunction of the Indian Army. Then, as liberation, the moment of liberation came, another group of officers, they broke out of their cantonment in Chittagong, killed their commanding officer, shot their West Pakistani commanding officer, came out and declared independence and raised the flag of independent Bangladesh, Ziaur Rahman. So one of the contested versions is that the man who declared free Bangladesh first wasn't Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He was in Pakistan's custody. It was actually Ziaur Rahman, Major Ziaur Rahman. So he came out, other officers came out, and they started marching towards Dhaka. By that time, Pakistani army was also, units were moving from everywhere to surrender to Indian Army and to Mukti Bahini. So that is the contested history. What else is Sheikh Hasina saying? The big difference between this speech and the one she delivered earlier is that this time, for the first time, she's brought in Pakistan. She's brought in Pakistan and she's talked about Pakistan in detail. We'll share a link of the speech with you. And she says that, look, it is Pakistan, it is because Pakistan discriminated against us so much that we had to ask for a separate country. In Pakistan, we were not allowed to rise in the army, not even in the civil service. There was not one Bengali who was a secretary. They suppressed our language. That's how Sheikh Mujib started the Bhasha Andolan. In fact, she says 4th of January 1948, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, along with other progressive parties, actually, to be absolutely accurate, what Mujib founded was the East Pakistan Students Muslim League, which then morphed into this all-party language movement. Now, he set it up, and that led to the Bhasha Andolan, which ultimately led to protests, resulting in Sheikh Mujib's arrest on 15th of August 1965. This is the time when Pakistan has already launched Operation Gibraltar in Kashmir by sending in almost 10,000 infiltrators who were mostly Pakistani soldiers in Mufti, hoping that there will be a revolt on the ground and they will be able to grab Kashmir. That led to our first full-fledged war, the 1965 war. It is at that time that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was arrested on India's Independence Day. It's just a coincidence, an unhappy coincidence, that 10 years later, in 1975, on 15th of August, that is when he, along with most members of his family, was assassinated in his home. She says that even when he was arrested, even when her house was raided so many times, 32 Dhanmondi, it was robbed, it was ransacked, but it did not burn. It's only now that it is being burned. And she says Pakistan used its Hanadar Bahini. Hanadar means invader. That's what they call Pakistani army. Hanadar Bahini to carry out massacres, rapes. Had Mujibur Rahman not freed us, what would we have been today? A colony of Pakistan. She says history of our country is a history of victory. It cannot be erased, because right now constitution is being erased, our flag is being erased. Also, the uniform of the police has been changed to match the uniform of the Pakistani police. But you know what? She says in this speech, they cannot destroy history because history knows how to take its revenge. That was once tried in 1975 to erase this history. That's when her father and most of her family got assassinated. She and her sister survived only because they were overseas. And then she asks a rhetorical question that for these people, does freedom of the country has no value? They would rather prefer being colonized under Pakistan and serve them instead. Yunus's takeover, she says in the speech, is illegal and unconstitutional. It's based on weapons and money, and he's risen to power walking on the bloodied bodies of people. And she also describes Yunus as Beiman, Munafiq. Beiman is dishonest, and Munafiq in the Islamic understanding is a bad Muslim. Then she goes on to say that he had made meticulous plans to murder her. In an earlier speech, she had called Yunus a selfish, greedy man. Now, Bangladesh government has responded to these events, and obviously they are blaming India, and they are blaming India for letting Sheikh Hasina speak from India. They are saying if she is there, she should be quiet. She should not talk about Bangladeshi politics. So Bangladesh's chief advisor's office, media office, issued a statement where they said, and this is important, the vandalism at house number 32, they just in not Dhanmondi, the vandalism at house number 32 is unintended and unwarranted. But they say this came because of the provocative statement by Sheikh Hasina. So there is always that but after everything. Then it gives two reasons. It says there are two reasons. There are 2 points on which what she said is objectionable. That's what the Bangladesh government is saying. Number one, that she disrespected the July uprising by making irrelevant, vulgar and hateful remarks on the death of our martyrs of the July uprising. That's what led to her fall. In the same tone or similar tone in which she carried out corruption, terrorism and inhuman processes, she now continues to speak and threaten the July uprising leaders, and she continues to strike again and again on the wounds left on our people's minds during the July uprising. I will share with you an interview that Muhammad Yunus did at Davos with Gideon Rahman of Financial Times, where he talked about the circumstances of his coming to power and where Bangladesh may reach from now. He avoided saying anything hostile about India, except to say that the key to Bangladesh's future lies in producing hydel power And that is if India lets those waters come in. Obviously, he's talking about Tista waters. So although I don't know in those waters, given how much incline is available on the Bangladesh side, how much electricity could Bangladesh produce? Nevertheless, that's what he says. He says glowing things about the students, and he promises an election either end of this year or sometime next year, but he makes no commitments. That said, I will now take you back to the history question, because ultimately a lot of it is about history and legacy. Was Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Bangabandhu the founder of Bangladesh or the father of Bangladesh? It's almost like asking, was Mahatma Gandhi, can Mahatma Gandhi be called the father of India? So this is a debate a bit like that. What is it that the new Bangladeshi government doing? Right now, they are very actively rewriting their history. They are rewriting their history in their textbooks, class 6 to 9. All textbooks are being changed. Chapters talking about Mujibur Rahman are being dropped. 6 texts on Mujibur Rahman are being dropped, and new texts on Ziaur Rahman are being introduced. So once again, contested history of Bangladesh's liberation, or contested claims on Bangladesh's liberation. Ziaur Rahman, who founded Bangladesh National Party, BNP, and his wife now, Khalida Zia, she runs it, and BNP thinks that they will have a good chance if an election is held early. So the fact is that BNP, the army, and the Bangladeshi business leaders, they want an early election. But the Bangladeshi students and Jamaat-e-Islami, they want to postpone elections because they want time to prepare so they can build their new political parties, because they think unless they have political parties, a proper setup, they will not have a chance of coming to power. It is BNP which will get the power. But once again, the interim government has indicated quite strongly that when they hold elections, Awami League will not be allowed to contest in that election. Now think about this. This history of holding elections by keeping one party out. We saw this happen in Pakistan, where Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, PTI, was kept out of the election. So the other party was there. It's like one side playing a match and saying, we won, we won, we won. In Bangladesh, such conditions were created by Sheikh Hasina. She was no angel. She created such conditions that BNP was not able to participate in the election. So that also became a one-party election. And her party could say, we won, we won, we won. This was an election. I will just underline to you Western hypocrisy. Specifically in this case, the American hypocrisy. The Europeans are there also, but they are not so important. That is, in both countries, the election was stolen by keeping the biggest rival out. In Pakistan, by keeping Imran Khan's PTI out, and in Bangladesh, by keeping Khalida Zia's BNP out, right? But for the US and for the Europeans, for the Western world, how come the stealing of one election is acceptable? That's Pakistan. And the other is such a revolting thought, that is Bangladesh. That is the hypocrisy or double standards that our External Affairs Minister Jaishankar also spoke about just the other day. Now that said, I will take you back to the history question and what's happening with the textbooks. And that's what keeps on happening in countries with fragile nationalism. So it keeps happening in Pakistan and in Bangladesh. In both countries, every new ruler usually comes with their own iteration of the constitution. Even the current government of Pakistan has carried out such massive amendments in the constitution that it has made substantive departures from its original constitution. Some similar exercises are also carried out with the textbooks, and that is what's happening in Bangladesh now. So I told you about these chapters on Mujib being dropped, chapters on Zia being added. So there is a quote I see from Bangladeshi media from the NCTD, that's a Bangladeshi National Curriculum Textbook Board chairman, NCTB chairman. His name is Professor AKM Riazul Hassan, and he says, what we are doing is we are deleting the exaggerated contents about Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. These are being removed from textbooks because this is not a one country, one leader situation. That is not what it is. And then he says there were other leaders, Sher-e Bangla A.K. Fazlul Haq, Maulana Bhashani, Ziaur Rahman, I mentioned him to you just now, so on and so forth. So that is what's happening in Bangladesh right now. The new textbooks chapters will also be added on graffiti art that was used by protesters during the July Revolution, and some chapters titled Sense of Self, Loneliness. These are tributes to the students who participated in this movement. Now, after looking at all that, let's see the situation on the ground. So the latest account we have is from Michael Kugelman, and he's written this in Foreign Policy magazine. I will share a link with you. He's an American scholar. He's just visited Dhaka, and he says there is uncertainty in Dhaka. In fact, his headline is "Uncertainty Reigns in Bangladesh," and he says public is impatient. They don't want Sheikh Hasina back, but they are impatient right now with the pace of change so far, because they think that this government, interim government, has made tall promises but underperformed so far. The economy is floundering, inflation is coming down, but is still in double digits. GDP from July to December last year was below 2% GDP growth previous. And in any case, I'm sharing with you this article from The Economist, which obviously is based on what the current Bangladesh administration put out or shared with them, that they set up a committee that looked at the previous government's claims on the economy. And this article says, based on the report of this committee, that claims on the economy of a Sheikh Hasina government were hyped, which means the economy in any case is not in such a healthy state as we thought it was. FDI over the past 3 months, Michael Kugelman says, has come down by 71%, and if this continues like this, then impatience will rise. So once again, in conclusion, the Bangladesh story is now unfolding. Sometimes it goes into a little bit of a hiatus, and then it comes back with something like this. All it tells you is something that I had said in the very beginning, that it looks like, although we all want Bangladesh to stabilize and get okay, it's a very important neighbor for us. However, it does seem like what I said in the beginning of this episode will play out as we go along. Things will get worse before they get better.